Folks, we have something truly historic here as the late night grin reviews the already infamous Royal Rumble 2022. An event so bad that apparently this three-man review is going to be a one-man review for the next 5 minutes. Bob O'Neill decided to go and get coffee 5 minutes before we went on the air. Great professional. He'll be fined accordingly. The Oracle of Wrestling has vanished. Seems bad. This event appears to have well, it appears to to have greatly affected the interest of my cohorts here at the Late Night Grin. I assume that will change, and they'll be joining us here shortly. As many of you will know, Bob was in attendance last night. God bless him. And well, it seems he's had an interesting, what we're looking at here, 12 hours or so to reflect on the event. I think we have all received some messages from Bob. When I say all, I mean us grinners. Some of you may have too. I don't know how desperate he's been. But he'll be joining us here shortly. We have much to talk about until the guys get here. Let me do some viewing of the chat. Good call by Shoot. In fact, I think there's only one way to do this, Shoot. I think you know where we're going. I think this was a lob from you, so I'll dunk it for you. Here it comes. Bud Matt.
What happened?
I won.
Many all-cap messages regarding Bud Matt, who won with free curb stomps. Legitimately kicked the shit out of poor Jonah. A triumph here for the Late Night Grin. Sorry if that spoiled PWG Bowler for you if you was waiting out for next June on the DVDs. I'm looking here at the chat. I see JJ is so committed to his TNA bit that he's saying matches were good that maybe wasn't. God bless, I respect it. Reese with the more grounded take of that entire show sucked. Fair. Leland here was saying that I think is really an astute point that is probably going under the radar in the grand picture, which is, well, of course there's no heat. They're all heels. More on that later. When you only have one apparent winner in each Rumble, it makes so bad. But that's their booking. Yep. Silence for 95% of the Rumble. Yeah, I mean, again, we'll go piece by piece here, folks, but the lack of heat, but really the whole show beyond the opener, but in particular the lack of excitement for each Rumble entrant other than maybe like a handful in that last 10. There's 10 to 20 was like, honestly, maybe unlike anything I've ever seen. I couldn't believe it. So we will get into that. Many seems bads, many fed deads. Even one for my brother who never watched this program, but felt the need to based on this catastrophe. Is the Mecca taking a victory lap? I think even they are probably sitting this one out, Chief. I think, you get what you get, I suppose. Cage match has the event at a 2.66. Who throws better punches, Shane O'Mac or Ronda? Well, I think I'm taking. Oh God! Now Ronda from last night, I think Shane has beat, but generally she probably just pips him on that one. I would say. Only 12 out of the 30 women being full time is disgusting, considering this was the 5th women's Rumble. Yeah, good Lord, man. The men's Rumble is sitting at 1.87. Yeah, it seems to have been critically acclaimed, right? Fair to say people enjoyed this one. I have many takes. I don't know if I should. I feel like when Bob gets here, he may just warrant having the floor. So maybe I should just give you guys my general overarching review here. Now, I think this was an objectively bad professional wrestling event. However, this is perhaps the most damning thing I could say. This wasn't awful in a a couple matches were, but for the most part, it wasn't awful in this is a mess mechanically. Like people are falling down and this stuff's going wrong and it's kind of funny. This was the worst of what WWE has become in that it was just a lifeless, soulless venture in which even the most obvious of home runs was missed. And it just it truly felt like there was a complete lack of inspiration, a complete lack of ideas, just as flat as a Royal Rumble I can ever recall. And I want to make it clear that is not me saying it wasn't bad, because it was bad, legitimately bad. But to me, the real issue here wasn't that. It was the fact that the whole thing just felt like it was completely uninteresting. And if nothing else, the Rumble avoids that usually on the concept alone. I mean, this was the show for for those of you that've been kind of beating that drum about the the releases and rightly so, and the way this roster's changed. This was the show to point to, right? Here you had a show that legitimately exposed every talking point that folks like me have been hammering, which was like that roster's just, it isn't where it needs to be, man. It's got a handful of guys that are over based on stuff they did 5 years ago. There are people that are featured on TV every week now that come out to silence because people don't watch the TV like that anymore. They don't care. They're not invested. And it's just like this sad, hollow kind of it's just a place where your favorite wrestlers go to just fucking lose and get treated like dorks. They do stuff that if I'd have pitched it, you'd have laughed at. And I mean, their standards are so low that I think we all expect the worst. But like stuff like Shane throwing Kevin out and Madcap Moss eliminating AJ Styles, who had gone like 30, 40 minutes, whatever it was. It's just, I'm looking at the chat and I'm not ignoring you guys, but I'm honestly trying to piece together the best way to explain it. It was completely devoid of any kind of life or spirit, or it was just going through the motions for 2-hour-long Rumble matches, in which, again, every simple decision was somehow mishandled or overcomplicated or confused. It really brought back a point that I was pondering a while back and I got away from it. But this show really brought me back to it, which was, I truly believe that they're at a point now where you'd need a booker to like tear their playbook up. You would need someone to actually get rid of all of the tropes and everything they do. You'd have to get rid of all of that to regain this audience trust. There is a sense, and look, folks, I'm just one person talking, but I think a lot of you will understand what I'm saying here. There is truly a sense watching this show that there is like an intention to actively upset their audience. There is an arrogance and a dismissiveness to the way they do things that I can't imagine any self-aware booker doing. The way certain guys are treated, the way certain women were treated in that match, it just felt like they're messing with the audience. And there's a truth to some stuff is for the live crowd, but not for us, right? Like, so, for example, I don't have any interest in Ronda Rousey. Did they pop? Sure. Brock, I guess. But there were certain things in these matches that felt like I was being ribbed. And maybe they're just so unaware of this part of the audience that they don't care, or they don't know exists. But there's like there's a sense of contempt, There's a sense of like a real disdain between the audience and the product, and the consumer and the content is like they're so in complete contrast with each other, it feels. And again, I know they're booking for an audience that isn't necessarily you and I, but there's a level to it. That audience didn't care about anything in that match for the most part. They sat there in silence. There's guys like Omos who have been pushed for a year on TV and got absolutely no response whatsoever. Austin Theory, same thing, who's been doing segments with Vince McMahon. He's all over Monday Night Raw. Like, someone said it on social. Someone said, the beauty of the Royal Rumble is every year it gives you a chance to get people back. The most lapsed fan will always take a vague interest in the Royal Rumble, And here, on this particular night, they gave you a great glance at what this promotion is now, and that couldn't be more damning. It is everything bad about what WWE has become encapsulated in a 4-hour event, making the most obvious matches, disappointing and underwhelming based on finishes. It is sacrificing full-time stars for part-time pops. All of the above. And I agree with this, Joe. I want to make this clear. I agree with this completely. That was not something that was lost on you and I, but the casual view. That was just a bad professional wrestling show. And you could tell by the lack of heat during both Rumble matches. The first of which, I mean, they never recovered from the finish of the first match, the Women's Rumble. They never, ever got back. Ever. And, we can sit here and analyze stuff all day long, but at the end of the day, the audience will generally give you a pretty good clue of what's going on. And when you hear guys getting pops because they were doing good stuff in 2017, but the guys that are on TV now are getting nothing, it tells you there is a general lack of interest in the television product. And again, people can, this number, that number, linear eyeballs, it speaks for itself. When you see a guy that's doing segments on TV with Vince McMahon come out and get that reaction, the people are not paying attention. They don't care. They're not invested. And, in his case, it may, who cares, right? But I think we all agree there's guys in that match who should be getting a reaction. I don't think you should be at a point where a Ricochet walks out to silence. I just don't. And unfortunately, they are just seemingly unaware, or they're uninterested in changing that. This show was not a show that was bad, but had like a sign of hope at the end with a certain, an interesting choice at the end. Maybe they had someone else win it that would have been unique or different or creative. Instead, what you got was the absolute status quo, the obvious choice, the one that we all kind of rolled our eyes at. And the audience live, I don't care what anyone says, the audience live give you that. It was apathy. It was like, of course, because they've trained the audience that at WrestleMania time, the full-time guys take a backseat to their real stars. And that is toxic. I think there is a real conversation to be had, and hopefully Bobby gets here soon, the sack of shit, so we can have it. I meant that playfully. I love Bob. But we can have the conversation of like, there's a real truth to the way this product makes people feel that I think we take for granted. Like, on the negative side, obviously, there is a pain and just like disappointment that people get from this product. And frankly, I'm happy to say that I don't really get it anymore. I laugh at their whole shit because it doesn't surprise me. But it's sad. It shouldn't be that way. This promotion had a chance there a couple of years ago. When that roster got to a certain point, they could have really reached a new golden era, if not in terms of commercially, at least in terms of quality and critically. And instead, they feel like they're in the middle of the 90s, And I don't know if the pieces, the puzzle pieces surrounding are going to allow them to adjust from that, to be honest with you. This feels like the norm. And as much as we do Fed Dead and all that stuff, and I get it, I'm not really invested either. As much as we do that stuff. Hang on a second. Oh, God bless. Bobby's waiting. Oh, my goodness. Hang on a second, folks. Bobby is waiting because the Oracle of Wrestling is unknown, not aware that I'm live. That's incredible. He'll be here in a second. Yeah, as much as we do those jokes about Fed Dead, it isn't good that this product's that bad because Laps fans that tune in for this, man, did they get a sight of all the flaws right now. The Power Akash here. So as someone who basically only watches the Rumble and a bit of WrestleMania annually, even I noticed a difference. It was striking, the lack of crowd, investment, the lack of pops, the lack of excitement. People standing up every 90 seconds, counting it down, and then just sitting back down. Like, it was brutal. This is why it was worse than the 2014, 2015 Rumbles for me. I just feel like there's no hope anymore in this country. It might be, because then you had baby faces that the audience was truly invested in a way that, quite frankly, I think may be gone now. Oh, poor Bob. Now I feel truly bad. Hang on a second. I now realize this was my fault. Okay. Poor Bobby. I apologize for burying Bob. That Dallas Mania crowd will be very telling. Yeah. It'll be interesting for sure. And now Lashley has no one to fight at Mania. Yeah, we'll get into that. I think we're going to go match by match. Kofi's spot was and apparently that affected Big E's elimination. So I guess you can cut him some slack on that one. That rules. Okay. I have to apologise to Bob. I think I just called him a sack of shit live on the air and it wasn't even his fault. Amazing. Amazing stuff. Yes, this was obviously. I mean, like, stuff happens, right? It was bound to happen one day with Kofi. The stuff they try, but unfortunately, the other 40 minutes they have not got quite the same excuse for. Yeah, it's hard to be fired up for Big E moving forward here. Very much so. I don't know what the plan is or any of that stuff for Lashley, but it's hard to be confident that it was Big E, but based on the stuff we've seen in recent weeks. And also, even if like the elimination changed, it feels like that wouldn't have been the alternative, right? Feels like that wouldn't have been where you'd have gone. You wouldn't have just had him thrown out. You'd kind of at least try to get him to the end there. Oh god, boy, if they were going to set up a New Day split in the Rumble, incredible. I think the thing is though, JJ, I get you, but they just it's hard because people have been grown to accept it with Kofi. So it's Big E is on SmackDown now. Yes, seems bad. I mean, that wouldn't stop them if they wanted to, but I agree they don't want to, which is why he's on SmackDown. I'm amazed at the fact that I buried Bob on here and hadn't even sent him the StreamYard. That's incredible. Boogs was like the only guy in the middle of that match that stood out, which should tell you a lot about how things went. Oh god. Bobby getting his win back versus Goldberg at Mania. Oh dear. I wonder if Goldberg will be involved. That feels like a great play, right? Bring Goldberg back, do him and Bob free. I guess it would be free. They did the match in Saudi. Apparently, Baylor is not in America. I don't know what it was with Cesaro. They may have just left Cesaro out. Yeah, I don't know. Feels that way, Reese. It does feel like Big E's kind of been slotted back in his prior position. Okay. I'm now waiting to hear from our friend Robert O'Neill, who texted me 5 minutes ago. Should we just go live? To which I said, Bob, I'm live. And then I realized I'd never invited him to this show, so he couldn't even get in if he wanted to. Oracle is actually absent, which is tremendous. I believe that's just what he wears, Tope. Balor left the country. Someone on our Discord said, "Who benefited from this show? Whose value went up because of this show?" And I was like, the people that didn't work it went up because if you're someone that's even somewhat popular professional wrestler on the roster, you came out this looking better because you wasn't one of the guys that walked out the dead silence. So God bless. This is filth. Big E versus Goldberg. I think that's probably Big E's best option, which is incredible. The Women's Rumble has a 4.5, easily the worst match of the night. I think the Women's Rumble was worse technically, but the men's was more it was more disheartening, if that makes any sense whatsoever. I think that the women's match was a real struggle, I thought, in terms of the production physically and everything. There's a lot of issues. But the men's match was like, I don't want to say depressing, that'd be too strong, but like it was pretty dark. What am I looking at here? This was something, right? Yes, this is a better explanation. I was not bored during the Women's Rumble match. So therefore it's better. Regardless of how some of the stuff went. The men's one felt like it went on for years. Yeah, there you go. That's good shit. I like that. Yeah. We need to talk about Bob and Brock because that to me is like more than any of this. That's kind of the worst of that promotion where they give a clear ceiling to a match that had a lot of potential to be actually great, which is a shame. We'll talk about it. We're probably going to be on here, folks, for another 90 minutes or so. then the football starts. The American football, that is, to be clear. And I'm told that's very important. Bobby will be here shortly. I have to apologize to him. And then he has to, well, I think it's high time that he not let it play out any longer, unfortunately. Yeah. Bless Bobby, man. He's trying his best. No comment. Bob bought his coffee and has been home for 20 minutes. I've just actively dunked on him by not inviting him to the show. Seems bad. He'll be here. Oracle may not be here. Appears he will not be here. Yeah, the Sasha Banks usage was... I actually haven't seen much like controversy on Twitter about it. I haven't seen many people screaming and shouting about it, but if they were, they are well within their rights to do so. That was insane. I couldn't believe it. Here he is. Bless Bobby. I feel so bad. Bob, I'm so sorry, man.
Oh, that's my bad, man. I didn't follow up.
No, but I was like burying you on here. I was like, this piece of shit prima donna. I hadn't even invited you.
Oh, yeah.
How you feeling, buddy?
Well, I'm all right.
Speaking to you last night, I got the sense that you had reached the point I reached in New Orleans of like, is this worth it? Is this worth watching? You know?
Well, it sucks, right? Because like you would think when you leave a live event, like you usually feel good at least, like, hey, that was all pretty cool. But like, I don't know, like 5 minutes after, it was like, oh, cool, Brock won, and then just kind of like taking time to think about it, think about the entire evening. It was like, well,
right,
none of this was very good. Like, and that
sucks. Yes, it feels like we're going to be without Oracle, doesn't it, Bob?
Yeah.
So do you want to go match by match, or should we just talk? What do you want to
go
do?
match by match? That's fine.
Okay. Probably best because then we can start with a positive and slowly work our way, work our way down. Okay, so firstly, it was interesting. There was no pre-show match, right, Bob?
Yeah, it was boring as hell.
Yeah, fair. Okay, Seth frickin' Rollins and Roman Reigns ain't pretty obviously the best match of the night, right?
Yes.
And through 95% of it, I actually was damn good, bordering on great. Of course, they do what they do, and they do that finish. But even before the finish, they did the Seth. He was laughing like he was Heath Ledger and very sad.
Yeah.
But the match was very good, and on this show was a godsend because little did we know what was ahead.
Yeah.
Your thoughts on the match and then the finish, Bobby?
Yeah, I actually liked it a lot. When it was leading off, I'm like, oh, Seth's going to win the title. Roman's going to win the Rumble. I texted multiple people that, and I look like a fool now.
The thing is, it got to me at like 5 in the morning, like 5 hours later. So I was like, what are you talking about, Bob?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of like Seth throwing everything at him and Roman just kind of barely surviving. And then I didn't mind the finish in that regard. Like, I get why some people didn't like it, but like Roman finally getting the one chance to, put him down. I didn't like the post-match stuff, but the finish didn't bother me that much.
Do you think the finish would work better if it wasn't the opening match? Because I think that was one of those things where you set the tone. Now, here's what you could speak to, and I don't know, genuinely. What was the live reactions? Was the finish, did he get the reaction of like people being like, oh, fuck, or was it actual heat? Because they were booing Roman, but I couldn't figure out if it was good heat or people being bored.
It felt like the heat was on Roman instead of the promotion, which is not something that happens a ton.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was well executed. Again, I didn't like the post-match stuff. It felt like they were waiting for someone to come out, and it just never happened. Felt they kind of went too long with it. But yeah, as far as the match itself and even the finish, I didn't dislike it at all.
No, I think, look, in all seriousness, everyone can find some enjoyment of this. I think your mileage may vary somewhat based on your investment in the Seth frickin' Rollins. I will say, though, Bob, and we've talked about this before, as a heel, he may be a better character. In ring, Seth is way, like he's just so much better as a babyface, man. Like because he can just do his moves. That's what he's best at. Like, so that's something, and the crowd likes him. So I think a sort of half-hearted thumbs up because I think they kind of undid their good work, but the match itself was good, unquestionably. Now, Women's Royal Rumble match. I was talking this a bit when most people I spoke to agree this is the worst Women's Rumble match yet. The reliance on former stars, I think, and I mean this with no disrespect to the women, but like, I think it really showed how little of these women made an actual impact the first time around. And let's be honest, that isn't their fault. But like, at home, Bob, it didn't sound like you folks were popping for too many of these returning names, you know?
Yeah. No, not really. Like Cameron actually got a pretty nice pop. Summer got a nice pop, and yeah, like the Bellas, and that's about it.
Yeah, it was. And, you know, naturally with those women, because they've not been in the ring, it happens, right? Like the work gets looser, and it's like the big thing to start with. This start here, and we'll work our way through this, Bob. Have you got any read on like the Sasha Banks elimination? That was
No,
I can't figure it out.
No, it makes no sense.
And like, look, I think people know you do a lot of bits on Twitter, and like there's an element to it as a wrestling nihilist. There's an element of like, oh my god, they're actually insane. Like you can't help but kind of admire the insanity of it. But then you sit back and think it's like it made the match worse. I can't believe she went for it. She should have said no.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, you know, the Sasha fans, they go a little overboard sometimes, but they were well within their rights last night, I think. Like, I don't get bringing her out 1 and having her out before, you know, number 10. I think she's in like 10 minutes. And if she's not ready to go, don't put her in the match, you know?
Do you think there is a chance that they intend to do Banks and Bailey versus Zelina and Carmella? Because Zelina threw her out, right? Like, maybe?
Yeah, I guess. Like, it kind of feels like they're going to do, you know, Zelina and Carmella and the Bellas and Liv and Sarah and maybe one other team. Like, I wouldn't use Banks and Bailey there. I think they can have bigger matches than that.
Oh,
but, like,
to be clear, they should not be in that role. I'm trying to find any reason. We talk about this a lot with AEW, right? And it's more important here. Zelina Vega is really valuable, and she adds a lot to your wrestling show. But everyone has a role, and hers should never be eliminating Sasha Banks. It just shouldn't be. That's the way it goes, right?
And it's just like they're not even on the same show, so you can't even really. I mean, you can capitalize on. They're not gonna like, you know. So it just, I don't get it.
It's just there are elements, and I said this before you got here, Bob, and you were talking about how the show made you feel, and that's something that really struck me because I remember New Orleans being the same way. Of like, you kind of walk out going, "Is this how it's supposed to be?" You know, like this felt like them almost ribbing people to me, which I don't know, man. I'm not saying that's what they did, but like, good lord, it felt like a rib.
No, and then, you know, getting kind of further into the match, like the Sonya and Cameron and Naomi part didn't really make a ton of sense either.
Right.
Like, I don't know what Sonya was saying on commentary. Like,
she basically was like, "Wait, that's Naomi's friend," and then that was the idea.
I guess that adds something, but like, I wouldn't have probably done it that way. Like, it very clearly kind of telegraphed Naomi was coming out next, which is fine. You want to do that, that's fine. But like, they're also just keeping that thing going too. Like, no one wants to see that feud anymore.
Yeah, and there was stuff in these Rumble matches that if we'd have sat down and thought about it, and the chat too, we all would have agreed that's something they'll do, right? Like they'll have these people reunite, they'll have these people clash, and it's like they don't even. You tweeted last night they're not good at Rumble matches, and I know people probably thought you were being dramatic, but like they seem to miss like the obvious things that they usually do fine. Like, I don't know, man. It was weird.
And it was weird, like the response to that was, oh, you know, the 2020 men's rumble was very good. And like, yeah, it was, but like they've cut, you know, 100 people since then, and it has clearly made an impact. And I mean it's just it's rough, man. It's a bummer. I was upset last night.
Yeah, it was brutal. We'll talk about more in the men's match. This was the first example, I think, of where the cuts were like you couldn't ignore how much the roster had worsened, right? Like it was really the men's match. It was really bad. And we'll get into that. Okay, other things in the women's match here quickly. Like, what is Charlotte's deal with Rhea Ripley, man? Rhea came in, she got some like momentum, she beat some people up. Charlotte immediately comes out, then eliminates her later, obviously, because of course, like Bob, I'm not imagining it, right? That's a weird dynamic those two have. There's something going on there, Bobby, I'm telling you.
Yeah, no, I don't get it. And that doesn't make sense either. Like, Rhea's someone, I think, what is she, 25 or 26? She's someone that you need to, you know, really push into the future. I mean, like, you know, no disrespect to, you know, Four Horsewomen, Ronda, Asuka, all them, but they're not going to be around forever, you know? We've seen it, you know, two of them were out for an extended period of time between Becky and Bailey, and it's just like, you got to build some of these other people up.
Yeah, it's, look, Oracle's not here, but I was talking to him about it, and he said, like, you know, Rhea, he thought was the star of the match in terms of performance, not in terms of how they used her. And I really think there's an audience they can get with her that they don't have any idea of how to tap into, and they don't realize like how much of a star she could be. They just this lost on them, but you get what you get, I suppose. Okay, elephant in the room here, Bobby, and I'm not trying to shame you, but I think we need to talk about this. If Ronda Rousey is going to win the Rumble, and that's what you're going to do, is there a worse way in the world you could have executed that plan than what they did here? Seriously, like, is there a worse way? If I had a pitch to you, here's what we're going to do, Bob. She's going to come out and she's just going to be like another woman in the match for about 10 minutes, and then she'll win with like a really flat. She'll just like throw Charlotte over.
Yeah.
She could not have felt less like a star. What are they doing, Bobby?
No, and that's the thing. Like, I get, like, you know, Brock came out at 30 and just kind of cleared everyone out, and they didn't want to do that in both matches. But, like, you know, you got to figure something out. Like, yeah, she's in there for 10 minutes. She had the stuff on the apron, like, to add intrigue, or just it didn't work. Like, and I like Ronda. Like, I'm glad she's back. She got a good pop. But it's just like, man,
yeah.
That's rough. That's a rough way to do it.
Yeah, it's something, man. You don't want to overreact because it's her first match, but like Ronda looked like she hadn't seen a ring, right? She looked rusty. I mean, it may have been lost on you in the stadium, but like her stuff looked terrible.
Yeah.
You know, and they didn't hide it or like they didn't protect her in any way. She just went in there and looked bad, and it was like. You couldn't leave it being excited about her match for Charlotte. You couldn't be. There was nothing to be excited about. So, on that point, look, I think I'm trying to look for a positive here. I guess the Mickey stuff could have gone worse, right? I guess.
Yeah, I popped big for Hardcore Country. I didn't think they were going to use it.
Yes, that was pretty cool. There you go. That's a positive. It was. Do you think it was the weakest women's rumble yet, Bob? What do you think?
Yes.
Yeah, a real shame and. Unfortunately, a confirmation of what much of us have discussed in terms of like this division's struggles as of late, right? And you know, there has to be kind of a thought about what this actually looks like moving forward because this is not where this division should be in 2022. I'm sorry, it just shouldn't be.
Mm-hmm.
With that in mind, I didn't watch this match closely. It has not been too popular among critics. The Becky Lynch Doudrop thing, was this a case, Bob? You were in the building. Was this a case of just unfortunately, Peel didn't buy Doudrop as a challenger. It was a heel match. Just didn't get over.
Yeah, it was part of that. You know, it was part of following a Rumble where, you know, like I said, Ronda, there was a lot of energy when she came out. Right. So I think people just kind of got tired out. And also the WrestleMania sign was on fire. So everyone was kind of looking at that. From what I saw, the match was pretty good. Like, right. I like Doudrop. I don't know that maybe she's not ready for a stage like that yet. But, like, I don't know.
It's the thing we talked about. Like, and look, folks, I'll be very... very transparent. I did not watch the match closely. You know, talking with a pal, and we were watching the show loosely. I think Doudrop has suffered from the fact that they've just not done the work with her, right? Creatively, she's to you and I, we know that she's good, but like,
yeah,
the general fan that filled that stadium just did not see her as a threat, did not see her as a star, and that limits matches. You need heat, man. You need some sort of interest from the live crowd. So. Yeah, that didn't change the momentum much, unfortunately. Bob Lashley and Brock Lesnar, the one we were both looking forward to. There was a lot of good here, right? There was a lot of positives. The opening sequence where they built to the big German suplex was great.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it didn't click the way you wanted, and then, you know, they made a clear decision as to what their priority was, right? Like they would make, you know, go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, so that's the thing. Like, I was watching it and I'm like, oh, I'm kind of underwhelmed by this. And then I went back and I did rewatch it. And I'm like, I guess it was kind of just my expectations, like, were maybe too high for it. And it wasn't ever going to be, you know, the Brock Goldberg match. It was fine for what it was. Like, Brock finally learning how to counter the barricade spear was good stuff. You know, it kind of felt like Heyman was always going to turn on him.
Right. And we need to talk about it. So firstly for the match, I think there's a world in which these two can have a great match. This wasn't it because, unfortunately, it felt like focus was elsewhere, right? And like I get it, I understand, but it hurt me as a fan because this was the dream match. I mean, to them, it felt like a bridge to Roman.
Yeah.
Goalie brings it up. The lack of heat for this. It may have been different for you live. The crowd did not they didn't have big fight feel for this. They just kind of sat there.
Yep.
That was damning, I thought. That was alarming.
Yeah, and then, I mean, kind of adding to it, like, you know, that stuff at the beginning where they were kind of scouting each other out, it did kind of go a little too long in the building.
Right. With that crowd, they probably should have just jump-started, right? I understand what they were going for, but it is what it is. And then the Paulie stuff, which you brought up. Now, you and I have kicked this around, right? This idea that Paulie was going to double-cross Brock.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll ask the question like I asked with Ronda. Is there a world in which you can do this worse? I mean, this was so flat. There was no, like, drama. He just handed the belt. And, like, you guys in the live crowd kind of reacted, but, like, it wasn't the big dramatic swerve, right? Like, they even messed that up. I couldn't believe it.
Like, remember Survivor Series 2002 when he did it with Brock against Big Show and he, like, pulled the ref out? Like, that's something at least.
Yeah. There was no shock or awe of what happened. It was literally just as flat as there's the belt and he's turned.
Like, am I interested, I guess, in seeing Friday, like, how they explain it? Yeah, because that stuff usually is pretty good.
Yeah. It's Paulie, right? Like, he'll figure it out on the promo. It's just...
Yeah, it was just a little disappointing. I mean, I'm happy Lashley's champion again, though.
Yeah. I just wish that I wish he came out this looking better, Like, it just... He felt like such an afterthought. And I get it. Like, they're big matches, Roman and Brock, but man... Brock had a visual pin on him for like 15 seconds, Like... Yeah, it's a real shame. That match was not bad, but I actually thought it was quite good. It wasn't what I wanted it to be.
Also, I was a little concerned because Lashley took like 4 suplexes right on his head.
Yeah, and then he started doing them like he was turning, right? He he'd never been German soup. God bless Bob. He's like, I've never taken these before, bro. No one's ever done this. Brock does 20 of them a match. Okay, Beth and Edge versus Maryse and Miz. Look, I'll be honest, from what I saw of this was like passable sports entertainment fodder. It didn't seem like it was terrible or anything. Maryse did the Hurricane Rana DDT thing, which popped me. It looked like it was fine. It's just unfortunately when a match is fine in this particular point in the show and it's been bad, it doesn't feel fine, does it?
No, that's the thing. Like in the building, it felt way too long. And from what I've seen, most people really liked it. So like, I probably need to go back and check it out again. But yeah, it was fine for what it was. I thought it was too long, and like by that point, it was like 10:30 already, and it's just like we've been here for 3 hours. Let's just get to the other Rumble.
The 2 Rumble thing. Like, I'm not saying they can't do it, and I get why you kind of have to do it. It's the right thing to do, but like, they haven't cracked this formula, have they, Bob? Like, there's evidence that they need to figure out a way of doing this because people just get exhausted. It's too long.
Yeah, I think it's got to be 5 matches.
Yeah, and also obviously the elephant in the room is the Rumble matches have to be good, right?
Yeah,
that would help too. Okay. Here we go. Men's Royal Rumble match. Bob, this is currently a 1.84 on Cage match out of 10, which you get what you get, I suppose. Now, this is how I describe it before you got here, Bob, and see where you're at on this. I said, physically, in terms of spot for spot and mechanically, I think the Women's Rumble may have been worse. But in terms of fun, it blew. This was painfully boring. It had hardly anyone we care about. Give me your thoughts. You were there live of what happened in this Men's Rumble.
I mean, first of all, I like them starting with Adrian Shinsuke.
Yes.
That was good. I enjoyed that. But yeah, just kind of overall, like not putting any surprises in until Drew, I believe, was the first like unannounced guy. And it just kind of shows like they don't have it's not even like a star power thing too, because all these guys, there's not like a star power issue in the company. Everyone's just kind of in the mid card or upper mid card. Like, I guess that is an issue on its own, but like,
I think
it's a lot of talented people who have been positioned well in the past to like,
there's a star power issue, not a talent issue, I think is the way to put it, right?
Yes. So yeah, it's just like it was a boring start, and it just kind of never got better. I like the Styles and Rude thing too. I hope the TNA chant came across in the broadcast.
Yes, it did. Yeah, about 5 seconds of it.
Yeah. But yeah, it just the thing is, like with the Rumble, they're usually trying to tell like 2 or 3 stories to kind of jumpstart that road to WrestleMania, and I don't know that they did that here.
Right, folks, the Oracle of Wrestling will be joining us shortly. Yeah, sorry, Bob, but I'm trying to catch up because I didn't invite you because I'm a piece of shit, so I'll catch up on what you missed. But I was saying it lacked ideas, right? There was a lack of like at least usually with the Rumble you can tell what their aim is. Like, well, we can, this is a project, we're going to make this guy look good, or we're going to set up this feud. And as you said, there was none of that. It was just guys standing around killing time. And we all kind of had a feeling that the end game was Brock, which led to the live reaction. And I think even for you, as much as you probably popped in the moment, the reason it didn't have much effect for you was the reaction of Brock was ultimately like, well, of course, right?
Yeah.
Like he didn't have any zip or pop. There's some stuff in here, man. Like the Omos section, bless Omos. He's not his fault, but like, good Lord, it died a death. It did not get over.
No.
How was that live?
Yeah, it was rough. You know, I probably wouldn't have had him eliminate Damian Priest. That seems like a poor idea.
Especially the way he did it too, right?
Mm-hmm. I would have maybe not had him eliminate the Street Profits. Yeah, I don't know, man. Like they clearly want to do something with him, but he's just not there, and I don't know if he's ever going to get there. So it's like I don't know what you exactly do with him.
Yeah, I get the fascination because it's like we understand it, right? Like he's a huge guy. I get but at some point, some of these pushes, like they got to get over it at some point, right? It's just otherwise you end up in this situation. Okay, looking else here, there was something that, good Lord, man, the big moment for me. I didn't think the match was good. I thought it was boring. But when Madcap Moss threw out AJ, I like that. To me, felt like they were actively dunking on the people that watch the show. You know?
Yeah.
What the hell, Bob? Seriously, again, the same as the Zelina thing. Not everyone should eliminate like tears. You know, like not Madcap Moss. We don't dislike Riddick Moss. The character we know is deaf. We're not like hating on the dude. Him eliminating AJ Styles is basically telling the audience they just like you're out, right? Like people were invested in AJ. I don't know what was the reaction of that in the building.
Yeah, it wasn't great.
Very mad.
I mean, yeah, you could have like just kind of looking at some of the guys that were in there when AJ was in there. You could have Gable do it. That would have been kind of cool.
Yeah.
You know, Sheamus I think was still out there when AJ was in there. That would have been fine. It just, I don't know, man. Like that was kind of the big thing too. Like, did anyone learn from Pat Patterson how to like actually lay one of these out, or did they just think he was going to be around forever?
See, here's the thing though, and again, I'll go back to your point before Oracle gets here. It was the lack of creativity was what was most striking. It felt like someone would enter, you guys would sit there in silence because either A, you didn't recognize the music because why would you, or B, they aren't over, right? The music, by the way, this is not an important thing in the grand scheme compared to the rest of the problems. That is an issue. That whoever's doing their music now is bad.
Yes, and I'm glad you brought that up because that like you only recognize a handful of themes, and it just the Royal Rumble. That's such a big part of it.
Right. Everyone's so generic and bland, and no one takes any of them seriously because most of them are just goofs, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're building up for these entrances, and no one's popping for them. But there was no spot pieces within the match. There was none of those moments where you kind of, that was cute, that was clever. And I know the Kofi thing went wrong, that's fine. But other than that, there were very few moments that kind of made you kind of, well, fair, that was a nice idea. It was just people waiting around.
Yeah.
I could not believe how devoid of any kind of intrigue it was. The Oracle of Wrestling has appeared. Oracle, put your thumb up if you're ready to join the program. There we go. There we go. This has been an incredible event. Oracle, I went live thinking that Bob was late also and had never invited either of you to the show and was like, yeah, that piece of shit Bob's no-showed. Oracle's not here.
Well, I woke up at 12:30 my time and I thought, oh, no, I can get about 30 more minutes in and then 30 more minutes turned into about 70 more minutes.
Amazing. Yeah. Well, we've done this show match by match. So this is a good time for you in there because we can then just talk broader. Before we go to you, Oracle, Bob, quickly as a Brock fan, give me your reaction. Because I know you wanted to pop, but like execution. And then we'll go back and kind of talk broadly. Go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, so like obviously when he came out, I was like, oh, okay, they're actually gonna do it. That's cool. And then when he won, I'm like, all right, yeah, awesome. I'm still excited for another Brock Roman match. I know most people aren't, but like, I think in this setting it'll be fine. I definitely get people being upset about it, but yeah, like I was cool with it. And then like once I got to the car, trying to get out of the parking garage, got some time to think, and I'm just like, if you told me Brock was gonna win the Royal Rumble, I think I should feel a little bit different than I do right now, like just in a vacuum. And that's really kind of when it stuck out to me. Like, yeah, this isn't all that good.
Oracle, you and I were talking a little bit last night. just let's talk broadly here, and then you can feel free to isolate matches as we talk, but like, just where are you at on this thing? 14 hours removed from it. Where are you at on what was quite the rumble, my friend? Didn't go over too well.
Yeah, I mean, it was. I mean, this was probably the worst Rumble since 15, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Pretty easily. Although I'm not sure it was worse. I mean, 15 had a classic on it probably, but this one didn't.
How do you feel about the suggestion that how 15 was like? It was like mind-numbingly stupid. Like it was like they made every mistake. This felt alarmingly like flat. Does that make sense? Like this was one, we often talk about how some wrestling is so bad it's good or so bad it's almost worth discussing. This was just like there was nothing, right? It was different.
Yeah, so like at the time 15 was shockingly bad. It was so bad it was unbelievable how bad it was. This didn't shock me. I mean, I'll toot my horn, a little bit. I was 6 or 6 on my predictions. I predicted everything except for I didn't predict Roman would beat Seth the way that he did, or I didn't predict Roman would retain the way that he did. Rather, they really protected Seth, as just we think we might get Bobby and Seth. I mean, I could be wrong there, but
I think you're probably right.
But this was nothing. So because of that, nothing surprised me. None of the finishes surprised me. Not even the fact that there was poor execution surprised me.
Fair. It's on brand at this point.
What surprised me a little bit was how bad the execution was.
Yes.
Some things. That it didn't shock me. Nothing shocks me anymore with them. But it did surprise me a little bit how poor the execution was.
Right.
Particularly with just the men's Rumble. I mean, just how poorly executed that was. None of those segments within the match were. I mean, Happy Corbin and Madcap Moss having a 15-minute run.
Yeah.
And that's just.
That's to me
believe. I mean, I can, but it's just.
It feels like they just have no understanding of their audience, man. Like,
no.
Yeah, and
who wants that? And in their mind, it's heat because Drew's going to come back, and it's like, no, like just don't do it, right? Sorry, Bob, what was you going to say?
Well, then another point to that, and this is kind of just like a live crowd thing, is having Randy Orton come out at 29 in St. Louis, and having him only be out there for 2 minutes, like that kind of upset people too. They wanted to see him, have him come out in the middle and just have him. I know, he doesn't always want to be out there for a long time and do a bunch of stuff. It's a Royal Rumble. You can avoid that. You can have him out there for 15 or 20 minutes.
Right.
Randy could have said, yeah, exactly. He could have sat there in the corner and made funny Orton faces.
Well, let's be fair. That's what everyone else did, right?
Right. Yeah.
The Iron Man and Iron Woman on these shows, just everyone stood around. There was no ideas or no kind of little cute,
At one point, okay, what happened with Natalya at one point while she was waiting for the Summer Race spot? Was she hurt?
I wouldn't question her decision making at this point. She just.
I know, but she was just like weirdly like holding her face and kicking her feet like a child. And
well,
it was very bizarre.
She's not very good.
Well, no, but it was bizarre.
Was this? I agree with everything you said there, Oracle. I think we're both on the same page in terms of like, I'm not surprised it's this bad. Was you surprised? This is what stunned me. Was like, I don't watch the product closely. I was legitimately startled by how few of these dudes got any reaction. Like people walking out to silence, man. It was insane.
It was bad. So, in the building, Bob, Ronda's win came off with a good pop, even though I'll say what I feel about how she did last night.
Yeah.
Here in a minute. It felt like she had a big pop. Did not feel like Brock had a big pop when he won. I mean, I feel like in the building was louder than it was on TV, but it felt almost lukewarm. maybe because of the way they did it, or I don't know, maybe it was a production thing, but how was Brock's? I mean, obviously he was super over last night, but it felt like his win in the Rumble in particular didn't get the pop they maybe anticipated, but I could be wrong on that. Was it loud in the building, or rather, how comparable was it to other pops?
Yeah, I think both Ronda's entrance and win were probably louder than Brock actually winning.
Okay.
You know, I think the first time Brock came out, there was a good pop. You know, everyone did the Heyman introduction stuff, and just I don't know that they wanted to see him again a second time.
That's how it felt watching on TV, right? Oracle. It felt like people kind of went, well, yeah, obviously. And they kind of shrugged their shoulders at more than they pumped their fist for Brock winning. It was kind of like, well, obviously, he wins every, Brock lost, so of course he'd come out and get his win, right?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, and my thing is, like, they didn't even bother, like, trying to explain it. Like, have him take someone's number or something. Just do a 20-second thing where he beats someone up. It just...
I want to give Oracle a chance to speak on this because I think he's been one of the most consistent in his stance on this matter of Brock Lesnar at this point. I think we all agree Brock Lesnar is great. And in this particular time, he's like a really engaging TV character too. However, you've always said about his impact on that promotion and what he's come to represent. Was this one of the more striking examples yet of just like he's the ultimate crutch, right? They can't.
Yeah,
it
was really bad last night. I mean, even with the McIntyre thing, we talked about this last night. I mean, look, I'm a Drew fan. Drew has very fair criticisms. I understand your criticisms of him, but I actually thought he looked really good in the Rumble last night.
He did.
Last night. It really. This was just like a way for another way for Brock to get his win back on Drew.
Yeah.
I mean, he just laughed it off, like you mentioned, Joe, in the DM.
He didn't sell it as some triumphant.
No.
He was just like, well, of course, easy. And it's just
dumped him. I mean, it was just, I don't know, man. Lashley didn't look cool in any way when he won.
Yeah, that too.
Bob, what was you gonna say, pal?
I did enjoy seeing Brock interact with people that he hasn't really interacted with before. Right. That was one positive. That might just be for me.
I just find it not like. Look, I get Brock wrestled already, so you probably didn't want to do anything in the Rumble, but like, imagine doing it that way around with Brock and Ronda. Like, let Brock actually be in there with some guys, and then protect Ronda by having her just toss people, right? Like, and now Oracle, floor is yours. We've had some fun about Ronda Rousey. Your thoughts on her performance here on the Rumble?
I'll go into a spiel about this because I'm a big fan of hers in the ring from 2018-2019 run. Okay, it's no surprise I was high on her in the ring specifically. Some of her promos popped me because they were so bad it was almost ironically good.
Yeah.
Same goes for last night. That promo was incredible. But I could not believe. I mean, it's one thing to have ring rust, right? Which I kind of expected. I mean, she literally looked like a bottom 10 worker in the world last night. I mean, it was unbelievable. I mean, she looked sub indie level bad.
Yeah.
She looked lost, confused, tired, bored. I mean, she was doing her terrible strike. Ronda was never. I mean, she threw one or two good-looking knees.
Her selling was her best trait, right? As a wrestler,
it was selling and bumping. She could bump pretty well too.
Right.
This was not a.
It was terrible.
This was not good. This was a horrific performance from her.
Yes.
the worst performance I've seen from her by far. I mean, it was the worst performance of the night in the ring.
But in her defense, and I don't want to say, but in her defense, imagine having her in that, like having her just kind of hang around with the other women for that long. Like,
I don't think she knew what to do.
Right, she's supposed to have an aura. You don't have her just
Mhm.
stand around and trade strikes with people. Like, and Kate's right? We don't know physically where, and that's why it's important to say there's a lot of moving pieces here. It isn't necessarily a knock-up, but like, it's hard not to watch it and come out thinking, holy shit, that match with Charlotte is going to be a piece of business, folks. That's going to be something to see. So, I don't know. Now, here's the thing, and I said this to you, I believe this strongly. I don't know. I've not looked at the metrics. Maybe Ronda's fame is lost on me at this point. I cannot fathom having Bianca Belair and Sasha Banks on my roster and being that desperate to sacrifice it all for Ronda Rousey's fame. Make your own stars, man. You've not given Sasha anything by comparison. Look how big a star she is on her own, it's such a loser mentality, Like, they're so desperate to get these other stars,
Yeah, I mean, it's just Ronda could have come in at 30 and thrown 3 or 4 people out.
Yes.
And they could have, bumped and, she didn't have to sit around and, yeah. I mean, it's probably true that it or it might be true that she might not be totally physically ready.
Right.
I think she probably will be by Mania, but I mean, that's 10 weeks away. Maybe not. But I mean,
what's the real upside though, man? Like seriously. Like, I get she's a star in business. Like, what business is this match actually going to do? Like, Mania's going to sell regardless. Let's be honest, right? People are going to go to Mania no matter who's wrestling Charlotte Flair. Like, I just think it's short-sighted. I can't help but feel it's short-sighted. Like, look, is a Rhea Ripley or Bianca Belair going to make you as much money this year as Ronda? Maybe not. But if you do the work now, in 3-4 years, you can get there,
Yeah.
Rhea Ripley was the best person. She was incredible in that match.
Yeah.
She was really, really good in that match. She had
There's
really good showing.
A lot of money to be made there, man. A lot.
Yeah.
They don't seem to get it, right?
No.
It's a shame.
I did y'all talk about Sasha's elimination any?
Yes, but you can go. We both legitimately couldn't come up with a good reason for it. It was brutal.
The only explanation I can come up with is that she came back about a month early.
Right.
And she was working a little hurt, and they didn't want her in there too long.
Mm-hmm.
Still got to be a better way, though.
But you're exactly right. There's got to be a way better way for her to get eliminated.
Right.
There's got to be I don't know, give it a moment of some kind. That was another big issue. There wasn't, a lot of the MLA, God, that's what happens when you just get up and jump on a podcast. I almost said a lot of the Himalayans instead of eliminations. That's another problem is, a lot of the eliminations. There we go.
There you go.
They didn't have time to breathe. They didn't have time to get. There was no. I mean, even some of the entrances didn't have. Drew's was given a pretty good moment. But even Ronda's? I mean, she came out and then they were like, "Oh, here comes the other person now."
And they cut to the crowd immediately. It was so weird. Yeah. And the announcers didn't put anything over like a big deal, did they? Any of it?
Right.
It was just.
Yeah.
And I agree with you. I think there's something to what you said about Sasha Banks, but I think we also agree. If she's only in for 10 minutes, put her at the end, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know, man. This Charlotte Ronda thing feels like everything bad about that promotion all tied into one big pile.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a lot of politics happening right there, my friend. That'll be a story to follow, folks. It ain't gonna be one we can bring you. We ain't scoopsters, but there's some stories that will be told. Let me tell you. Oracle, I would like you. I'm intrigued on your thoughts. I think we all agree Seth and Roman had the best match of the night. Thoughts on the finish, but before that, the match itself.
Match was great. Seth Rollins is very grating for me. But I do think it was, clever booking there to have him come out of the Shield stuff. That was a nice little piece of piece of booking there. Match was great. I saw a lot of people defend the finish.
Bob didn't mind it, so
Which,
fair.
Some people made some, okay points.
Right.
I just
Is it the time for it? Is my question. Is that the time to do that finish?
Yeah, I'm not so sure about that. It felt cheap.
Yeah.
To me.
Yeah.
And it's not even like it wasn't so much like a DQ or it's another DQ or
Right.
I don't care about that. It just felt cheap. It would feel weird not to have Seth get any sort of revenge on Roman, just from a kayfabe standpoint.
Yeah.
Luckily, I ended up not watching the show by myself. My brother Dustin came over and watched it with me.
That would have been a big help because I said to my brother and pal who was watching with us, I said, imagine watching this shit on your own. It was bad.
Yeah,
it was real bad.
Dustin was here, and he thought, there was a chance that they might do a 7-year in the making triple threat with Roman, Brock, and Seth,
right.
which I didn't think was the craziest thing to say because it's not going to happen.
Right.
But looking at how they set things up,
yeah,
it makes sense to think, that you would think that because, when's Seth going to get his revenge? Which doesn't seem like he may ever get it, or at least not for another 9 months or whatever the hell.
Right.
Maybe 6. Maybe they'll do Roman Seth at SummerSlam. But I don't know. The match was great, but the finish just felt cheap to me.
Did you not find this show to be a confirmation that Brock's beaten Roman? Because
oh yeah, which is bad. That's bad.
Yeah.
Oh boy, that's bad. That's real bad.
The problem is the way they're telling the story. You almost have to do it now.
Oh yeah.
Because if Roman beats Brock after the way they've done this, it would almost be like, my God, like there's no point. There's no one can beat Roman. They're in a corner with that. I find.
Unless you're gonna do Drew at like SummerSlam or whatever, but like, I don't know.
Maybe I don't know. I don't want to. I agree with Oracle. I don't want to clown Drew because I thought he was one of the few guys that had any kind of zip to him in this match, and he actually felt like he was in a Rumble match.
Yeah.
So
I actually like Drew. I know Twitter doesn't love him. The buildings love him. It is what it is. I get it, but yeah, I like Drew.
Yeah, I think Drew's over, and so is Rhea Ripley. She felt over last night. I heard she got big pops.
Always, man.
Yeah, they should probably do something with it.
I was saying it last night. I was like, this is a case of them not realizing what her audience could be, and she doesn't fit like it's frustrating. Even I feel that way about like someone like Shotzi. Like there's something there. They just don't. It's lost on them, The
Kofi spot was soul crushing, wasn't it?
Yes. Do you not think they should have just ignored it and just let him do the fucking spot? Because that's what I would have done.
Here's the thing. I'll say no, and here's why.
Okay.
Because me and I think a lot of other people saw.
Oh, absolutely.
His feet hit.
Yeah.
And for me, because I'm a fucking nerd, let me preface that. I would have been annoyed if they would have just let him come back in.
Fair.
There's a part of me that appreciates that he fucked it up because it felt more like a shoot.
You look like it hurt, man.
I know, but that was too ambitious. I saw Bix say that, and I think he's right. That spot was too ambitious.
God bless Bix, man. We salute you, Bix. You're never going to see this, but we salute you.
Yes.
Greatest. Where was you at on Bob and Brock, Oracle? We were a little bit underwhelmed, and obviously I had issues with the fact that Bob felt like an afterthought. But where was you at on the meat of the match? I'm intrigued.
First half I liked. I did not like the second half.
Right. That makes sense.
When they both no-sold each other's German suplexes on their head, it ruled.
Yes.
And
the opening, right?
And I liked when as our friend Contrarian Alex pointed out, Brock finally learned to move out of the way of the spear and the barricade.
Yep.
After all these years.
Yeah.
I like that. But then afterwards, we had like Suplex City shit, and it works better when he's like with Brian or AJ or
Poor
Finn.
Bob was struggling, right? It was tough for Bob.
It was not good. The Hurt Lock stuff was okay, and then we had the ref bump, and I knew what was coming then, and we all I think all three of us called the double cross, right?
But the execution we were talking about, I mean, could they have done it in a less emphatic, exciting way?
Yeah.
It's the simple stuff, man. Like,
I know.
I think this is really important we make this, because I know that we're all on board with this. Like, we all got great enjoyment out of this product when it was definitely not great, but it was just like fine.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And they seem to have lost the ability to do like the simplest WWE things.
Mm-hmm.
How in an angle with Paul Lee is there no like exciting turn? He just handed him the belt. It's like you could have done that in so many ways. I don't know, man.
Even Paul Lee didn't like. He had the initial like Paul.
Yes, but afterwards it was
face
nothing.
reaction, but he didn't make any sort of
big gesture or anything.
Could have been a little bit more theatrical. I guess the idea is that he was torn between his, clients or whatever.
Maybe.
I don't know.
Oh man.
Yeah. So I've got a big question from last night. Okay, I'm gonna direct this at Bob. Bob.
Yep.
I have a couple questions.
Yep.
Did you or did you not rig the WrestleMania sign so that it would be set ablaze twice?
I did post my picture pointing at it, and then it caught on fire twice. So
I don't think that's a coincidence. I think you put some sort of jinx on it, just like when you wore a hat, and then 10 weeks later, global pandemic started.
We talk about it also. Like it caught on fire once, they put it down, then they put it back up and just did the exact same thing.
I saw that. I saw at the end. Somebody, it might have been Sean Ross Sapp or somebody posted. They're like, and then it's set ablaze again. It's on fire again. I thought, of course it is. Of course.
This to me,
the metaphor's too good.
This will pop your oracle. Everyone does like WCW. It's, oh my god, it's WCW 2000 and stuff. We would be so lucky if this was like 1999. All the old guys have stopped caring. Like everyone stopped paying attention.
I keep telling people that.
Yes, you're right.
This was 2000. No, it's not.
It's not as fun enough.
No. We've lived in 1999 WCW for like ever now.
Yeah.
This is what this is. This is literally April 99 to October 99 WCW on a loop forever.
By the way, victory lap for me here. Because you guys were popping about Shane McMahon. He is disgusting.
Yeah,
he took 2 super kicks and didn't bump and then threw Kevin Owens out of that match, man.
Yeah.
It's so bad.
Lie. When he came out, my brother Dustin and I popped. See, once again, when you jump on a podcast, right when you get up, your words are just totally jumbled. It's very funny. But when he came in, we just started bursting out laughing when he did the Shane punches. When he started that shit.
He's added this liver shot in too. Did you notice he was throwing a little body shot? It was mad.
Somebody made a great tweet. I don't remember who it was. I can't remember what it was, but somebody said something. They described his punches in a way that was very funny, and I couldn't remember who it was.
There was one I saw, and I don't know the but this popped me huge. The tweet was Shane McMahon could punch the ground and miss, and I popped. I roared. It was so awesome, man.
God, yeah. I don't know, y'all.
KO kicked him hard too, and he was like, "I'm good. I'm just gonna stumble a little bit." And again, I'm gonna stumble a little bit. He was.
I do want to give a shout out to Bad Bunny, who is genuinely good.
Yes,
He was.
Surprisingly good. I mean, I saw the WrestleMania match, but still surprised how like serious he takes it every
Look-
time he's in there.
Non-wrestlers.
Mm. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Shout out to Bix. But Bad Bunny was very good, and Johnny Knoxville popped me huge.
He threw the little flipper.
Dude,
Fucking-
dude, when he lit AJ up with that forearm, I lost my
Oh yeah.
shit. That ruled. And then AJ,
AJ.
fucking murdered. Now
Yes.
AJ was the first strike looked like it hurt, but then,
And then he rained
when
him
he hit that lariat, dude,
Amazing.
fucking
Amazing
that
stuff.
was awesome.
Yes. Was that the best thing in the match?
Dude, it was. I honestly think it was. Like, I thought it was perfectly done. Like, Johnny Knoxville didn't overstay his welcome. He it looked like some stupid shit he'd do in Jackass.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, like it that ruled.
I can't believe AJ got thrown out by Madcap Moss, man. I've been talking about this multiple times. I can't believe they did that. That was surreal for me. That was like I was living a nightmare. I actually convinced myself he had a chance. And it's like, of course he didn't have a chance, right?
And that's another
Like,
thing. Like, it's not as bad as the Sasha one, but like they're on different shows. It's not something that's even going to be paid off.
It's not as bad, but like it's in the same ballpark, I think.
Yeah.
And again, this is not a knock on Riddick Moss. Like, it's not his fault he's doing that, but that character is such a nothing. You know, like, imagine having him for AJ Styles.
Mhm.
Like, oh, fuck, man. What's the current the current feeling? Because I'll be honest, and guys, you may disagree. This felt like more than just like, well, they had a bad show. This felt like an indication of some of the stuff we've been talking about for a long time in terms of lack of stars and lack of intrigue. And I think this was a real, and they won't take it this way because they sold out a stadium and who cares, right? But as a fan, I thought this was a like face facts, you know, just get to grips with reality here. There's some problems creatively. And that doesn't mean it'll affect their business, but in terms of the actual show itself, there are issues. Sorry, Bob, go ahead.
Yeah, well, you know, they're doing these 2-night manias now, so what is it? Probably like 20 to 25 matches total, and it's just it's going to be rough.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't like. It's difficult, right? I don't want to be dramatic. You guys know it's not my style, but I watched this and was the lack of like names that popped me in that men's rumble blew my mind. 10 to 20 was just like it was like one of those you know, the mid-90s rumbles where it was kind of like it was just characters that hadn't got over coming out over and over. It was this.
Yeah.
You know, it was just all, and I said this before you guys got here, but like, this wasn't a show that was awful in the sense that like, oh my God, they blew every spot. Like, it was bad in that sense. It wasn't mechanically good by any means. But the thing that made it truly wretched was it was just not fun.
Mm-hmm.
It was boring. Like,
It was super boring. Like, man, it sucked, man.
Yeah.
Like, it sucked.
Yeah.
I mean, the only things that, guys, you know me by now. I enjoy performance art.
Fair.
So, but I said this, and the way I described it popped myself last night. But this isn't even like true performance art, where like you're like, you know, this isn't like Skip Bayless or like, you know, Cody, you know.
Yeah.
This is like performance art by accident.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which
is an incredible phrase.
I mean, that's really hard to do.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to think of anything that makes me want to turn Raw on. Oh,
I mean,
yeah. I'll be honest. Ronda's promo was so absurd. She was so mean and hateful to the poor interviewer. And then, like, I mean, it's, you know, it's a gimmick, sort of. I don't know. It was very bizarre. It seems very authentic. but
awful, wasn't it?
yeah,
Oh
it was,
my
it was
god.
strange. That's the type of performance art that I kind of want to like tune in to see because I
Yes.
want to see how far they go with this bullshit. It's not good, but it's very amusing to me.
I agree. I popped huge at that whole thing. It was so uncomfortable to watch.
Part when she's like answering the whatever, and then she goes, "Wait a minute, that's a statement, not a question."
She goes, "Why now? What do you mean, why now?" just get actively mad at every question. But it wasn't in like a colourful way, was it? It wasn't like it wasn't in
No.
this kind of funny shtick way where she was shooting down the interview. She just looked so like bored and just
And like annoyed, yeah.
oh man, this was something, guys. Like, sometimes when you watch a bad WWE show or a bad wrestling show in general, the dust settles, and you're like, well, it happens.
Mm-hmm.
Dust ain't settled yet for me. I'm still looking at this thing like this was a fucking mess.
Mm-hmm.
This was kind of a disaster, right?
It always hurts more with the big four WWE. It's like
Yeah.
especially with the Rumble,
It's the one we all like. We all want to enjoy the Rumble, man. Like,
yeah.
honestly, even the people, the folks you see on your timeline that you feel like I hate watch WWE, I'm promising you, every person that tuned in last night wanted to have fun. It's the Rumble, man. Like,
Mm-hmm.
there was no fun to be had.
And I mean, the thing is, like, most people that don't like them do want them to be good.
Yes.
That's the thing that I think people don't understand with the hate watch stuff. Like, everyone wants them. It would be a lot easier for everyone if they were just good.
Look, Oric and I have talked about this at length behind the paywall. We're not under any illusion. Wrestling would be better off if this product was good.
Yeah,
it would be. It would be.
If our friends that are Lapsed fans tuned into Rumble and said, "Holy shit, that was awesome," it would be a lot better than us them texting us, "What is going on? Why is no one?" It's bad, man. Like it's like we enjoy it. You guys can watch whatever you want, whether you watch New Japan or Stardom or AEW or Impact or whatever. But we all have to be aware that to most people, this is always going to be wrestling, for better or worse, right? It would be nice if it wasn't like awful. I mean, again, I'm not asking for it to be the best, most critically acclaimed promotion, but it could be. I honestly think we're at a point where it's fair to say it takes skill to be as bad as they are. Like, if you go back 2-3 years ago and look at the talent pool they had and the position they were in, I can't believe this is where they've ended up. Look at the lineup for the Women's Rumble, man. How do you get there? How? We know how, right? But you get what I'm saying? Like, you have to. Sometimes we cover this stuff day to day, and we get stuck in the stories, and we talk about them each day, and we do this. Sometimes you have to step back. Look at that lineup. How have they gone backwards? And I'm not trying to knock the women that came back. God bless them. I hope they got paid well. Look at the talent they have run off, male and female, in the last 4 years, 3 years, 2 years, whatever. It's 1 year. This is, and again, does it affect their market value in the stock? Probably not.
Reminds me of that tweet I retweeted last night of the picture of Nick Khan and his family in the front row. So it just said "fuck," and I retweeted it.
Yeah, man, I don't know.
He was up there eyeing his next victims, I guess.
Yeah, well, he's gonna have a lot of them based on these performances.
Oh God.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a bummer. Like it just it sucks.
I really got the sense talking to Bob last night that he had hit that wall that I think you and I shared in New Orleans, Oracle. We didn't talk about it then, right? But like sometimes this stuff sometimes you'll be in there.
It's funny, like I'm not that upset about it because I don't.
Because you've gone through that part of the process, right?
The only thing that's upset me in the last 3.5, 4 years is SummerSlam.
Right.
That pissed me off with Bianca. I live in Knoxville, so I became a big Bianca fan through that and stuff, and that shit just infuriated me.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, I've been this. I hadn't been that mad since Mania 34. This year, I mean,
but
you almost just shrug your shoulders, which is just so sad.
I know this sounds really like dramatic, but I think both of us have reached the point Bob reached last night before. That's why we ain't out there now, right?
Yeah.
Like we're at a point where for our own Grin, we have to just not care.
Right.
We have no choice, because if we care, it will just drive us crazy, right? And like,
Yeah.
that's just. I referenced this earlier, and I think both of you can probably add, and especially you, Bob, because you're in the stadium. Like, there is a real conversation to be had about the way these shows make people feel at times. That I can promise you is not how professional wrestling is.
Oh no.
Am I back? Am I back?
Yeah, you're good.
I'm telling you guys, this is not how professional wrestling is supposed to make people feel. I'll never forget walking out of that stadium in New Orleans, man. That was, people were miserable, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And it happened again last night. Like, it's, I'm telling you, there is a real truth and a conversation to be had about the way people feel when they watch these shows, and it isn't normal. I'm promising you, it is not normal. Well,
Yeah, and
you
I
probably
think-
didn't speak to that better. Go ahead, man.
Yeah, I think that's really what is disappointing for me, because like usually, at least when I go to a show, like I come out and I'm like, well, that wasn't great, but I had a lot of fun, and
Right.
this time it was just like not great, and I didn't really have a lot of fun.
That sucks. I'm sorry, Bob.
Yeah, it sucks.
Yeah, it's a bummer. I mean,
At
and like
least
I
it-
said,
at least
Oracle,
it
I think
was
it
down
was,
the, at least it was down the road. But
yeah, it was nice. I think
I
before
read you were in bad traffic and McDonald's line was long. I'm sorry.
yeah, it sucked too. Getting out of the parking garage is like an hour. My line at McDonald's at 1 a.m. was like an hour. I just wanted to go home. They also can't start these shows at 7 anymore. They got to go back to starting them at 6. It's brutal, man.
I agree with that.
I think it's so telling that Bob didn't have fun when you consider the fact that Ronda and Brock won the Rumbles, which
Yeah,
is
that's
like,
the thing. Like, if you tell me that just in a vacuum, I'd be like, oh, yeah, okay, cool. That probably was pretty cool, and they probably have something really interesting planned, and it's just... Nope.
it's brutal, man. It's brutal. Like, people don't... They think we're doing like a bit or it's performance art when we talk about how sad it is that we don't like these shows, but like,
No, this
good
is
lord,
real.
man. Like, we talked about Friday night, the last hour of the Grim, we sat there and talked about the Rumble. And I think when the conversation ended, we were all like, that'd be fun, right? Let's see what they do.
Mm-hmm.
It's the most like boring, lazy, uninspired direction possible. Every turn, man. Like, it's just bad. Honestly, it is. It's just bad. Like, they have moments where they do good stuff because the wrestlers are great, and like sometimes they get out of their way. But let's be honest, for the most part, it's just a really bad wrestling promotion.
Well, it's just, at the end of the day, Roman, Seth,
Yep.
to a degree,
Mm-hmm.
Ronda, Charlotte, Becky,
Right. That's about it.
Brock,
Brock, yep.
and those 6 were the ones that were made. I mean, not even Bobby Lashley. He looked like a fucking loser. What do you want?
Yeah, and we all know, let's be honest, his Mania match is a mid-card match.
Yes.
It's the same way it was last year.
Those were the 6 people that they wanted to protect and look good last night, and they did. Everybody else...
Yeah.
And the problem is they could have done that if they wanted to. The issue is they completely dumped everybody else to the side. Big E, Bianca, Liv, Sasha, AJ, Bobby Lashley, who did not have to. In their eyes, he won the title. He beat Brock. It doesn't that? No. That's not how it works. It's just. They protected the 6 stars they wanted to protect, and then, they pretend in their heads that they protected 7, and including Bobby Lashley, but they didn't. And then everybody else who has any significance, who's on TV every week, Drew McIntyre, and who's on TV every week and actually doing all the legwork for the company week to week, they get fucking tossed to the side
every time,
like nothing, man. It's just it's cyclical. It happens all the time. They every year from April to January, 9 months out of the year, all these people, they get over with the crowd, some authentically, some organically, or others are pushed well enough,
right?
even to eventually get over. And then when it comes Mania season,
Yeah.
they get their 6 or 7 people, and then they just, everybody else fades.
It's toxic,
It's
man.
every fucking year, man.
It's toxic, and
It's what's the point of even in getting invested in this shit?
why care, right? It's
very bad and very sad.
And it's been a trend for a long time now.
Mm-hmm.
Many years. And there's that argument, right? Well, they're bigger stars. Brock's a bigger star. Ronda's a bigger star. They're always going to be that way if you don't make any stars, brother.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of the thing, like, with me about Brock. Like, he rarely loses, so I'm not disappointed too often. So that kind of is another reason that I gravitate towards him, because, it's hard to get invested in anyone else.
I think people should realize that when they make that argument, not what you just said, but the one I referenced, like, that's the same shit that kept a Hulk Hogan on top forever in WCW,
Yeah.
Well, he's more over. It's like, well, obviously, you haven't done the work to get anyone else over. Like, I don't want to repeat myself, be a dead horse. The Sasha Banks thing is, like, unfathomable how little they give her relative to her star power. I can't believe it. I genuinely... Like, if you look at her usage for WrestleManias, like, she obviously last year she main evented, but she was the heel to make Bianca, basically. And it's like, man, imagine what she'd be if you just got behind. And, like, you guys know, I'm not sitting here coming here from a stand perspective. Like, that ain't even me, but I'm just... How do they mess up with her? Like, why is Charlotte Flair is such a priority, and there's no evidence she's anywhere near the attraction that Sasha Banks is? It's just in their head. They've made their mind up. Charlotte's the face of the division. That's that, right? It's just, I don't know. That one really struck me as like, they just don't care. Do not care.
And for the next 9 weeks, we're going to go through where all these 6 individuals I just mentioned are all going to get their stuff built to and heavily featured and all this stuff in both brands. And then everybody else who got pushed to the side is going to have to work at it. And eventually a few of them will come through the cracks and actually get something over because they're good.
Yep.
And then the others will just get thrown in battle royals or may not even show up on the show at all on a 2-night Mania.
Yeah.
I doubt that because for some reason they've turned this thing where everybody has to be on WrestleMania, which is always fucking terrible.
The best pop of all is then when Mania's done and those part-timers go away again, we're expected to take those folks back as stars, right? And it's the same thing over and over and over again. And it's fine because they're bigger stars now. And it's like... Watch that Rumble and tell me there isn't a problem in terms of how many over guys they've got. You're like, they're running low, bro. Like,
yeah. I mean,
Bianca
Belair, man. She was so. I mean, she could be a really big deal.
Massive star, yes.
Yeah. And they were not super close, but relatively close last summer, and then they just shit it all away. But,
I kind of think she's still going to beat Becky, but, like, is it going to matter at that point?
I'll be honest, and I don't mean this as a criticism of Becky, because I don't think it's her fault. I think it's, like, really apparent how much her star power has diminished. I don't mean that as a dig, like, she's a heel. To me, she now is, like, so much closer to the other women than she was before, Yeah. Like, she's still one of their biggest stars, because, let's be honest, they haven't got many stars, but, like, beating Becky does not mean as much as they think it does. That makes sense? Like,
yeah, because she was the top star in the company probably like when she left.
Here's the problem too. We all know where they're going here, right? Like, if Charlotte wrestles Ronda, they're going to slow build to Ronda versus Becky. So, like, I don't know if Bianca Belair's going to... She might beat her at WrestleMania, but that doesn't mean she won't drop it back at Backlash. And, like... This is what they're going to stick with. They're going to have these pieces moving forward, and they're going to stick with them because that's who they see as important enough to be in those spots. And it's lazy and it's bland and all of the above. It's sad, man. It's a lifeless promotion. It's really hard to manage that when you have 40,000 fans in attendance that were as hot as they were in the opener.
Yeah, and I get it. Like, there's enough places where people just bury everything they do, and we're not like breaking new ground, but like I think I personally have earned the right to do that.
Yes, I would say you can do it, Bob. You was literally at the show. You can do it. Go ahead, man.
Yeah, no, I've kind of said it all. It's just a bummer.
Yeah. I think that's true with the chat just said Josh. I think Ronda Becky's going to be Mania in LA.
And here's the thing with that, and I know Josh isn't proponent. He's just saying that's the report.
Right.
So what's the end game there? Who actually gets over at the end of that? Because I don't think Ronda or Becky are going to be around for much longer. Full time.
That's why I think they're going to try to do like a year-long build throughout the.
Right. But like, if you said to me this, if you said we're going to have Ronda beat Charlotte, she's going to be champ for 4 months, 6 months, whatever, beats everyone, and then she's going to put over Bianca Belair. It's like fair. Okay, Bianca comes out of that the winner, right? Becky and Ronda's like, the time to do it was 3 years ago, man.
Yeah, that's the thing.
It's still a big match, but really, what are you actually gaining? Like, there's no outcome there that really helps. Sorry, Bob, I cut you off. Good.
No, because by this time next year, it's going to be 4 years from the Mania Triple Threat. So it's like, is it still that big of a deal that you're just doing this singles match now?
You've already done the heel turn with Becky, which is like the worst thing you can do to a character like that because it just makes him another person.
I can hear Michael Cole now. 4 years in the making.
Yeah, there you go.
Like Roman Rock's going to be big whenever they do it. That's just that's a given. But like this one, I don't know.
And the thing is, like, I'm not saying it will like die. It's just the idea that it's a match you do a year build to is just like, what evidence is there any of this stuff is actually a big deal? Ronda versus Charlotte, like, oh my god, they have to do it. It's a mega match. Says who? I don't give a shit about it.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's do we always do this with pay-per-views. Let's do it again. Let's rate this thing out of 10, boys. Chat. If you're watching along, you've enjoyed the review, give me a rating out of 10 for the Royal Rumble. I'll kick us off. I genuinely don't think cage match is being dramatic. I'm looking at a 3. I had such little fun that I couldn't believe it. It was that boring. Most of my rating goes to Seth and Roman. The rest, I had no intention of ever watching it again. I'm looking at a 3 right now. Bobby, you were there. What do you think?
Yeah, before you even went, I was going to go about 3.5. So I'm stick with that.
Oracle, are we being too unfair here?
Yeah, somewhere between 3 and 4.
Right.
Yeah, I mean,
Which, this stress again, it's a feat to make us go that low based on the fact that about 40 hours ago we were like, this should be fun.
No, I didn't think it'd be much more than 5 or 6 or something, But
right, but it's one of those things that it's the tone of it more than anything, right?
Yeah, it's a tonal thing, yeah.
It's just an absolute. It felt like a waste of time in ways that the Rumble should never feel. With that in mind, many people have requested it, so I will do this before we get out of here. Please do not clip this or use it for slander, but there feels like only one conclusion to draw. Sorry to say it, but it happened, right? I hope that when we do this for the next pay-per-view or whatever, it will be more fun. Any final comments? Oracle, I'll start with you. Any final words on what was a Rumble that I think there's a chance this one will live long in the memory for all the wrong reasons. What do you think? Where are you at on it as we close out here?
This is going to be another one of those infamy Rumbles. The next 9 weeks, are going to be an interesting, or maybe a very uninteresting period.
Yeah, we'll see.
Probably so. I may find myself on here on a few Mondays with you guys to try to patch together what the hell they're trying to do, which we never really know anyways. So
yeah, I don't know. Bob, you were there. Any final comments? You did take a picture of Sean Rossett, which was very funny.
I did, yeah. I got to see a handful of people who I haven't seen in a while or have never met, outside of Twitter. That was fun. I enjoyed that part. But yeah, overall, just disappointing, and it was something I was looking forward to, and just kind of fell flat.
Well, there it was, folks. The Royal Rumble 2022. A show that managed to fall short of even the lowest of expectations in many ways. A great encapsulation of WWE in 2022. So there you go. We don't do these kind of shows often, but I think we're going to do most like big show reviews, right? You generally be on Mondays, but this was a unique circumstance. I think everyone wanted to kind of get their thoughts out on this before the wrestling world moved on with something crazy happening, which I'm sure will happen very shortly, as it always does. So that was the Rumble. I'll be back tomorrow for something. I don't know what yet. Plans may change. Fed dead. We're going to, I think, Bob, it's fair to say we should probably give it a week because this show kind of felt like that was the show, right?
Yeah.
Like, there's no point us previewing the TV after this. We'll see what happens. We'll be back next Monday. I'll do something tomorrow. Tuesday, over on Patreon, we're doing the TEW, we're doing the Dark Watch Along. Wednesday, back free. Dynamite preview, Dynamite review. Obviously, last week's Dynamite review went great, right, Oracle? It went swimmingly. No one lost their mind at all on that show.
Never.
Thursday, we could have the Historical Oracle back, right?
It will be here. I have Halloween Havoc 95 and then 3 TVs. I'll be able to do it.
There you
Nice.
go, folks.
Havoc 95 is the big hurdle.
I can't
I've seen
wait.
that several times.
I can't
So
wait
I'm
to
going to
discuss
watch
that.
it again.
So that'll be Thursday here free, and then obviously Friday, the flagship Late Night Grin, 4 hours after Rampage. LateNightGrin.com. Sign up for just $1. That gets you everything. There are no tiers. You can alter your patronage, accordingly. Big love to everyone that's been supporting us there. I'm gonna do like a blog post for the Patreon to kind of wrap up the month and look ahead. So those of you that are over there can look forward to that. If you've watched this and you liked it, do the thumbs up and the subscribe and all the things that the kids ask everyone to do. This has been the Late Night Grin. All hail.